So, welcome guys to another episode of Art Side of Life, and I'm super happy to have Kevin here. Hi!
Hey, everybody.
So, I'm super happy that you joined us today here because we want to talk about the new age of education online as everyone can have a better chance to choose the courses. And before we get to that, I would like to hear more about you and your career, like how you got to art and why did you actually decided to go for traditional paintings as well.
Well, traditional painting, I went that route because back when I was learning, there was no digital art. Excuse me. So I was basically my story starts, I graduated high school, barely, I was a terrible student. And I went straight from high school into a career in construction. I did that for about 3 years. And at about the 3 year mark, I was starting to get tired of those very early mornings and the very cold winters. And so I decided, I'd been reading a lot of science fiction and fantasy books, and I'd really fallen in love with the art on the covers. And I decided I wanted to do that for a living. And so I went into work one day. I went into work and I packed up all my tools, gave them to one of the apprentices, figuring if I kept them, I might go back. And so I did the proverbial burning of the ships. I left construction, and I went to the School of Visual Arts for one semester. It was an expensive lesson. The lesson was that I wasn't going to get the education that I wanted there. And it's not that you couldn't get it there, but I couldn't seem to find the path. I didn't know what I was looking for, and the school wasn't very helpful. And so I went out on my own. I did that for about a year. And then realizing that I couldn't get where I needed to be by myself. I needed somebody who knew what they were doing. I got in touch with Dorian Vallejo, who is a very famous illustrator. His father is a world-renowned illustrator, Boris. And Dorian was kind enough to let me come out to his house and let me watch him work. I went out there. I did a little bit of work at his house for a couple of days. And within a year, I was a working professional working on book covers, and I spent the next 8 years doing that.
Oh wow, yeah. So he helped you with getting also into the industry and understanding all the skills you needed and like how to
Just the
progress
painting.
from the start.
Just the
Okay.
painting, not the business end of it. Just the how to paint. And I didn't get an education from him, but he opened doors for me. He gave me an idea of what was necessary, gave me some foundations for how to get into a painting, what the quality needed to be to even be considered.
Yeah.
And at the time when I first went out to him, I thought my work was a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
I assumed, you see these book covers and they're this big, and the painting is very big, and so when they photograph it and they scale it down, that all of your mistakes are hidden. But the reality is that the work is much better, the paintings are much better than the printed book covers.
Yeah.
And unless you see what the originals look like, you really don't have any idea what you're competing against in order to get work. And so just being in his studio and seeing what the originals looked like was an education for me.
Yeah. And how was it for you to do the first commission or first paid
Oh,
artwork?
it was incredible. I actually, at the time when I got my first book cover, I had been working for about a year, I guess. And I was working long days, 15, 16, sometimes 17 hours a day. I wasn't doing anything but painting and sleeping, painting and sleeping. It's all I was doing. And at one point, I was still living with my parents, even though I had worked, I had money in the bank. I was kind of paying my own way, but I was living with my parents still at the time. I think I was 20, I think it was no, 21. I graduated high school very early. So I, my mother came to me one day and told me, well, it didn't look like it was going to happen. So I needed to start seriously thinking about getting another job. And I told her that I was committed to doing this and I was not going to get another job. And that was that. And if she wanted me to leave, I could leave. But I was not getting another job if I didn't have to, because I was committed to doing this and I thought I was close. And I walked out of the room and went back to work. And 2 weeks later, I got my first commission.
Yeah.
A publishing company, a major publishing company in New York, book company, hired me to do it wasn't a new author. He was established, but he wasn't a big name. And the portfolio that I'd submitted, I had done a few special things with it that made it stand out. And so the art director remembered me when this new job came up. Yeah. And I did a mediocre job on the painting. There were all kinds of issues. But, considering the pressure of producing that first painting, it worked out really well for me. And I got that job. And by the time that was delivered, another job came in for a video game company. And pretty much they kind of trickled in, but there was never any break. As I was finishing one, another job came in, and then I'd finish that one, and another job would come in. And eventually I had 2 or 3 jobs sitting in queue, and I went for about 8 years like that. At one point I was booked something like 18 months in advance.
Oh, wow.
And it's a really nice place to be. Yeah. And look, some of it is luck. You have to have the skills. But if you're terribly unlucky, you're not in the places to meet the people you need to meet. You're always missing. You're constantly catching the red lights as you drive. Yeah. And I got lucky. I got in at just the right time. Had I come, say, 3 years later, I probably wouldn't have had the career that I had. Had I did it on my own for the first 5 years, and then I got an agent, and the agent opened up doors for me on a number of projects, but eventually to the cover that I did for the Rolling Stones. Yeah. Had I not had that particular agent at that particular time, that project, I wouldn't even have known it existed. Yeah. And so I just got lucky along the way. And it wasn't like I was sitting around doing nothing. I was actively pursuing all of these things. Yeah. But there is some luck involved in it. Yeah. Again, it's a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work.
Yeah, because you have to be ready to present or do actually the assignments. So you have to have something to show. And if there is an opportunity you can take, you have to be also ready to take it, right, as you mentioned.
Yes. Well, in large part, the Rolling Stones cover came to me. That was probably one of the most coveted illustrations maybe of the decade. It was such a huge thing. And that came to me because the designer who did the packaging for it, I had done a piece with him maybe a year earlier. Okay. Yeah. And the piece came back to us something like 23 times for corrections. Not because there was a problem with the artwork, but because it was a merger between MTV and Viacom, and they didn't give the department to one of them. They had a few people from Viacom and a few people from MTV on this thing. You got like 50-year-olds and 23-year-olds basically doing a tug of war back and forth. And the painting came back to me, like I said, about 23 times. And I never complained. It came back. I did the work in a timely manner and sent it back. And it came back. I just kept doing that. Yeah. And so when the Rolling Stones piece came up, there was an expectation that it was not going to be easy. Again, when you're working with something with a group that's so influential, they're accustomed to, on demand getting what they want, which is very, it's expected. And so the packager assumed that this thing was going to be a very, very rough ride. And the last thing he needed was an illustrator who was going to be difficult. Yeah, yeah. And so that was a big part in why the piece came to me. He knew that whatever was necessary would get done, and it would be done without me complaining.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, because I heard from many artists that there are like 3 aspects of either you are easy to work with, you deliver on time, or the artwork is amazing, or the combination of those. So as many of these you have, the better.
Yes, the more boxes you can check, the more successful you'll be. If you have relationships with the art directors because they like you, they know who you are. You go to their birthday party. You know them personally, because it's not just business to them. They're people like anyone else. And so if you are an agreeable person and you obviously have common interests, you work in the same industry. So if they like you, you can develop I wouldn't say a friendship, but a business relationship with them that is more than just that. And in some cases, even friendships. And so, when the really nice jobs come up, who do you think they're going to? And that's actually one of the challenges if you're new to the industry. How do you compete with the relationships that the artists have with the art directors? Some of these artists have been working with an art director for 15, 20 years. Even as an art director moves from one end of the industry to another, they bring their favorite artists, their friends with them. And so as a new artist, how do you compete with that? Yeah. And the answer is you have to be better than the people they're using. You have to bring something new to the game.
Yeah.
And that's challenging. It's one of the reasons why it's so hard to break in, because you're competing not just with somebody who's delivered paintings for 15 or 20 years on time, but also has relationships
Yes.
with these art directors.
Yeah, yeah.
So overcoming that, it's more than just being the equal of these artists.
Yeah.
You have to
So,
bring
yeah,
something new.
yeah, and
And
being part of the community definitely helps. So what you are guys
absolutely.
creating, that's like one of the most important things. And so that's what I would like to hear as well about, like, how was the transition for you to start the teaching and the school, and what kind of inspired you to do it in the first place?
Well, let me just I'll fast forward through how I got to the school.
Yeah.
So I did illustration for about 8 years, and I got out of that. I have about 250 or 300 published illustrations. Yeah. And then from there, I got into doing portrait work, kind of accidentally, and that snowballed into a full-time career. But also, when I was getting out of illustration, I founded a publishing company with a couple of friends, and I handled the art direction. Mm-hmm. And so I did that for about 7 years while I was doing portrait work. And with that publishing company, we did about 150 titles, including Game of Thrones. So for your listeners, I was involved in the limited editions of Game of Thrones. Yeah. So those are like gold binding and all kinds of, all the fun stuff.
Super
like,
cool stuff.
Yeah, like 75 drawings and color paintings in the book and all of that. So, and that was fun. I got to work on that project for about 6 years. It was a lot of fun. Challenging at times, but a lot of fun. And I got to work with some artists that I personally was a fan of, and so that was very nice. And from there, when we shut the publishing company down, I was a stay-at-home dad for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. My painting allowed me to be at home. My wife went out and she kept her job and continued to work just as she had been doing, and I stayed home with the kids for 5 years. At that 5-year mark, I'm now looking at my oldest one getting ready to go to school. And so I started thinking, well, what do I want to do? And portraiture, kind of ramping that back up and doing it full time. When I was doing the stay-at-home dad thing, I only did it part time. And so I was only taking bigger paintings. So I'd be out of town just a couple of times a year. And then I could spend a lot of time in my studio working on these, 4 and 5 figure paintings. So when I was looking at going back to work full-time, if I got back into doing portraiture full-time, it would have meant I'd have been out of town almost every weekend out of the year. I would have been very busy traveling. And when I was home, I would have been scrambling, getting my work done. And I didn't want to do that. I enjoyed spending time with the kids too much. And so I started thinking about what I could do closer to home. And eventually I decided to open up a school. And the school, it's something Dorian, the guy who taught me, when I told him that I had opened a school, he said, you had mentioned that to me 20 years ago, way back when we first met. And what it is that for me, growing up where I was, and it was impossible to find a clear road to the education that I needed in order to become the professional I wanted to be and work in the industry I wanted to be in. Like, where do you go? Like, you can go to an art college, but they're not specific to a thing. You have 1,000 classes, and which teacher is the one who can offer you the insight in this particular thing that you need? And how do you know that that's a linchpin to the career that you wanted? The educations in college, unless you have somebody to really kind of steer you, it's so convoluted. It's hard to figure out. You don't want to get into a school and get into your 3rd year and you realize there was a class in your 1st year with a particular teacher that you should have taken. And there's nobody to tell you, really. They have guidance counselors, but it's impossible to really figure out unless you go into the school kind of being handheld by somebody who knows the ropes. And that's if you're in a school, if you can get into a school that actually has the teachers who have the information. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the people teaching this stuff don't have professional grade skills. So if they're teaching you how to paint and they're not top-notch professional painters, the likelihood that you are learning the kind of skills that you need to be able to compete is so small. So like I used to go in and lecture at like Parsons and Pratt and the School of Visual Arts in New York. And I would always do the same. I would always start my lectures with the same thing. I'd bring a few paintings in. and let the students kind of oogle at the paintings, like the quality of the work, like the richness of the paint, the just all of the things that make it an elevated professional illustration. And then once everybody had settled down, the first thing I would ask them, if anybody had told them while they were in college, had anyone told them what to expect when they got out, when they graduated? And of course, nobody really, they didn't know really what I was asking for, but they didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, I will tell you what's waiting for you when you graduate. I'm your competition. As you stand up here looking at these paintings, being so impressed, I am your competition, and I am waiting for you. Me and all of the guys like me, we're not planning on giving you the work, the jobs we've worked so hard to get. We're not planning on surrendering the relationships we've developed, the 10, 15 years that we have as a head start. You have to take that from us. And if you're in your third year and you're not already thinking like that, you are so far behind. You're behind the curve. It's not that it's insurmountable, but you need to start early, and you have to think that way right from the beginning. You are going to get in the trenches and fight for these jobs. And anyone who doesn't think like that isn't going to be able to make a living. You're not going to be able to, and it doesn't mean you have to be like vicious and nasty, because that doesn't work either. But you have to have an intensity about you, an intent of being the best at what you do.
And the plan. Yeah. You know
you
what
have
you
to
want
have
to
a
do.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if you don't know, if you don't know what you are getting into, if they take you and they run you through some exercise and you do that for 4 years, and then they throw you out into a boxing ring with Mike Tyson, you're going to get killed. And that's what most people who go to college do. They're doing jumping jacks and jogging around a track, not realizing that it's a bare knuckles brawl when they graduate. For food, you're fighting for food and for a roof over your head. Yeah. And you have to approach even the exercises you do in school with that intensity. Yeah. If you don't, the struggle happens when you graduate, and the safety net is taken away. But the college is the kiddie pool. Yeah.
So when you think about your students, what is the thing they mention the most often that they appreciate about your classes and teaching the most? Like what comes up all the time?
Yeah. Well, we have a couple of things. One is that they have direct access to the source of the information. I'm always available. I have instructors who I've trained from the ground up. They're always available. People can get on. People can send an email in, and we'll be in a live chat like this the next day. Yeah. So if somebody's struggling with something, we're available. The way that the Evolve program works is it's a correspondence school. So it's not like you sign up and you just do this stuff on your own. Every single day there's a homework assignment. And you work at your own pace, so you can do one every 3 days. But every single piece of work that you do, you photograph with your phone and send it to us through our homework tool, and we check it. Yeah. Somebody who knows what they're looking at checks it and writes back to you to tell you what's done well, what might be an issue, things to look forward to on the next one. You can't move into the second piece until the first one has been approved. So you don't get to do anything on your own. You're never alone in the program, which is a big thing. There's tons and tons of free content on YouTube. But the thing is, you go out there and it's like, which ones are good? Which one's a good fit for you? Which one's at the right level for you? And once you watch it, like if you misunderstand something, tough luck. There's nobody to speak to. There's nobody to tell you, oh, no, do this way, not that way. And so with the program, with the Evolve program, what we've done is we've created a very, very straight road to walk down, and we kind of walk with you the whole way. Everything's a very small step. So like, again, everybody, I think, anyone who's gone to an art college knows this. Like you go into a drawing class, they sit you down and they say, here's a live human being, draw them. Yeah. Or paint them. And you sit there looking at it like, this doesn't feel like an education. It feels like trial by fire. I don't know how to paint or draw. And the truth is, I don't even know how to see. I'm looking, but I can't make sense of anything. I don't understand any of it. And, you can kind of fumble around with it. And if you do it long enough, you'll start to make some sense of it. But you're climbing a mountain when you could be taking a stroll through a valley. And a proper education makes it so that you don't have to do that heavy climb. those climbs are precarious, and more potential careers are dashed on those rocks than just about anything else. And so the idea is that if you can take the information and break it down into small enough parts and give it one at a time, it's easy to learn. And so when I talk about art, I always talk about it as a language. It's no different than learning. So if you want to learn to speak, let's say French, you don't speak French, but you want to learn to speak French, there's an alphabet. And it doesn't matter that you speak fluent Japanese. The alphabet's different. It's utilized differently. There's accent marks and all these other things. So it doesn't matter that you've done another language. You're going to do French, you got to do it from the ground up. There's no jumping into conversation. There's an alphabet. And from the alphabet, there's a vocabulary, there's spelling and vocabulary, there's pronunciation, then there's grammar. And from grammar, then you start just speaking. And eventually, when you develop the language strong enough, you create poetry. And that's basically what finished art is. It's poetry. So there are steps. The expectation that you're going to step into a space and start with poetry without the underpinnings of an alphabet and a vocabulary is I mean, to me, it's just foolish. But most educations in art, that's exactly what they are. There's an expectation that you'll be able to pick up the entire language by starting with poetry. And there's another way I explain it. Like imagine if you wanted to learn how to read, but you didn't know how. And somebody stood up on a stage and read Shakespeare eloquently with a resonant voice, and they just beautifully do some Shakespeare. And you stand there and you watch them, and it's like, well, that doesn't look that hard. They're reading from the book. But if you go home and you try to do what they just did, it would be impossible if you don't know how to read. And even if you stop them, again, art school, it looks something like this. So somebody's up there reading Shakespeare, and you put up your hand, and they stop for a moment and say, yes, what do you want to know? I'm wondering how you're doing that, you would ask. Well, I look at the words, I read them with my voice. And then they go back to doing it. And you're like, okay, that was an answer to my question. It was an answer, but it doesn't help me. And until you get home and start trying to read Shakespeare the way that person's doing it on your own with no help, you don't realize that it's not possible without all of the underpinnings. This person couldn't be doing what they're doing had they not taken public speaking classes, had they not possibly done acting classes, had they not learned the language from the alphabet all the way up. It doesn't, when somebody does something well, it doesn't look difficult. And that's one of the things. You go and you watch a YouTube video, some of these artists, they're incredible. They make a mixture and they put 3 marks down. It's like, whoa, it's a portrait. It's like, wow, that didn't look hard at all. It's just 3 strokes. And you go home and you're like 200 million strokes in, and you just have nothing but a mess. And you feel like, well, I don't have any talent. But the truth is, you just don't, like, you can take the brush and try to mimic what they're doing, but everything they're doing has 100 or 1,000 pieces of information that is in here helping them. Years of experience. I think Monet said he had an event at a very expensive restaurant. I think it was Monet, and a very large crowd of people. And at the end of the night, the owner of the restaurant came over and asked him for a sketch in exchange for the bill, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But he would take a sketch on a small piece of paper. It took Monet moments to draw. And the guy was happy to write off I don't even know, probably $10,000 dinner bill for a piece of paper with a pen sketch. And one of Monet's friends was just floored by the idea that a 5-minute sketch would cover a meal like that. And Monet corrected him. He said, it wasn't a 5-minute sketch. It was 40 years of education to make the 5-minute sketch. I couldn't have done it without the 40 years of experience and practice.
Yeah.
And so what we've tried to do is we've tried to create a program that strips away everything but all opinion. So every single person teaching the program and everyone learning it is learning exactly the same thing. There's no opinion. There's no experience necessary. It's a technical thing. It's like math. I don't care how experienced you are at math. 1 + 1 is always 2. It's always 2 because it's analytical. And so what we've done with Evolve is we've created an analytical approach to making art. Once you understand the analytical approach, you can use it to be as creative as you want to be because you understand the components. Yeah. You understand that 1 + 1 = 2 and 2 + 2 = 4. Yeah. And so keeping it analytical is the key to getting the success. And if you look at the Evolve program, hundreds of students going through it, every one of them is within a certain quality range. And it's all dependent on the student. Some students are meticulous and some are less meticulous. Some are in more of a rush. We can't control that. But there are students that are in the program to show you just how little opinion matters and how analytical the program is. I have students in the program who have never painted before, who are producing paintings in the earlier stages equal to the quality of what I can produce within the same set of rules. Yeah. It shows you the power of what those rules offer. Now, if they were going to compete with me on a painting that didn't have any boundaries and we could just create, I would run over them. But within the rules, where we're developing understanding, they can match the quality of my work. And that's how it should be. My opinions in what they're doing are irrelevant. Everything is by the numbers. Yeah. And so anybody who can do basic math, 1 + 1 = 2, can do our program.
Yeah, like understanding physics of light and color and objects and layout, yes. Composition, and all of this, how it works technically.
Yes, right. Again, and again, so, you can talk about, so one of the funny things, like you talk to people about color temperature. Yeah. And I can tell you, I've had students, you can't make somebody see it. You can't shake somebody hard enough to make them see it. So they see it when they see it. And once they see it, they now see it everywhere. And usually once they can see it, they can't believe that they were blind to it their whole life. Yeah. And what it is we open our eyes, we can see, we never think about what we're seeing or how the brain our eyes take in the information, how our brain processes it. But with neuroscience and all these other things, all the technology that we have, we're starting to get a much greater understanding of exactly how these things work. And with that understanding, we're now able, if we care to teach it based on that information. And so that's what we try to do. And again, the Evolve program is constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. As we come across things where students they're not seeing it the way that we're explaining it, we augment the program. We try to figure out what is the common thing that's being missed. Where did we fall short? And that's another thing. Like in the program, as long as a student is putting in an earnest effort, yeah. Okay, as long as they're really working, I don't believe that a student can fail. A teacher can fail because it is the teacher's job to figure out how to get the information to the student in a way they understand it. If I tell you something and it doesn't make sense to you that way, I have not taught you. It is my job as the teacher to figure out how to make it make sense to you, no matter how many ways I have to approach it from. But it's my job. So as long as you're honestly trying, you are not capable of failing. I, as a teacher, am. And when you approach education from that standpoint, it is always on you as the teacher to figure out better ways to break it down and to make sense of it. Yeah. Even for the one student who doesn't get it the way you taught everybody else. And again, everyone learns differently. Yeah. And I can tell you, I have, like in the online program, I have office hours. So people anywhere in the world who are in the program are able to sit down and have a chat with me just like this. Now, those are set hours every week. I do a chat every Tuesday night. And anybody who needs to reach out to me can get in touch with our customer service and they will connect them to me for a chat. Yeah. I'll sit there and watch people work. I'll sit there for an hour and watch them work if I have to figure out where the problem might be and what they're doing, that they're not getting the result. Yeah. The program is designed to make sure that everybody who does it, that puts in the energy, gets the result. Yeah. For me, I grew up fairly poor, and because of art, I have had this incredible life. I have had a life. Growing up, I didn't even know the world that I live in existed, yeah. And it's all because of art. Art has done this for me, and if not for art, I would have spent my life as a construction worker, which is fine, but the life that I have now for me, is a better life.
Yeah.
And I wake up every day. I love what I do. I've spent 30 years not wanting to sleep. I don't need vacations from my life. I wake up every day. I don't want to go on vacation. I want to be here doing what I do because I love it. I look forward to it every day. I miss it. I go on vacation. I miss this. I miss being in the studio. I miss painting. I miss teaching it, you know. And so, for me, starting this program was all about giving other people access to this. If this is their dream, giving them the shortest, least expensive path to bringing that dream to fruition.
Yeah, definitely.
The art world's been so good to me. How could I not share what I've figured out? And again, I don't own, like, I've had so many people over the years, even though I didn't go to school for this, I've had so many people over the years, painters who know a lot more than I do, just simply they've been around longer, they've done more, who have been so generous with the information that they have, with what they've learned. And it's a tradition within the arts, and it goes all the way back to the beginning. Artists have always shared what they know. They take apprentices and they train them, and they go out and start their own schools or their own, studios, and then they do the same thing. And the cycle's continued basically since the beginning of art. And it's nice to be part of that tradition. I don't own this information, and if I don't share it, it dies with me. All the things I've learned, and even if there's one thing that I figured out that nobody else knows, to take that with me, it's just not right. Yeah. It's not right. And so sharing is key.
Yeah, and definitely, as you mentioned as well, that you missed the work while you are on holiday. And if some people are super unhappy in work or the job they don't want to do, even though this seems like a maybe big investment at the beginning, but if you can transform your life into something you really want to do, and you actually help them from step by step, learning the skills and also breaking into industry and all of this, that you can start a new career, a new life you would actually love. That's invaluable investment when you think about that there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things with the Evolve program is that we're trying to make sure that we cover everything. Yeah. So we teach drawing and painting, but later on we also teach how to prep a panel, how to stretch a canvas, how to do your own photo shoots, and everything from we don't go from the angle where we assume that you have a professional studio. How to do a photo shoot with a cell phone and the lights you have at home, if you have access to nothing else, right? And so putting all of that stuff together, showing the students how to start a career. And again, I can sit down with individual students and fine-tune things for them, but we give a general explanation of how do you build a career. People's expectations of what a career looks like they're skewed by the high end of what art sales look like. So in the US, I think something like 70% of all art sales are $5,000 or less. That's not a lot of money. But if you're able to make one sale every month, you're talking about $60,000 a year. That's not bad. And $5,000, let's say you do 2 paintings. Now you're at $2,500 per painting. You might not start there, but that's not that hard to get to. You can build your way there. And again, so we teach the students how to get there. And I have students that are doing it. I have high school kids that make pretty substantial money doing portraits for local people. And I show them how to open up that door, how to make money, and how to raise their prices. Yeah. And again, how much do you charge? That's a very simple thing. I mean, this is something I hear it all the time. Artists don't know how much to charge.
Yes.
And so what I do with my students is let's say we have a kid and even an adult. So I have a kid who maybe they work and they make $10 an hour somewhere. So they already give their time away for $10 an hour. Better to be making paintings at $10 an hour than doing some menial job that doesn't further your education or your skills. For an adult who wants to transition out of a job they don't like, let's say they make $40 an hour. If it takes 10 hours to do a portrait, you can sell the portrait for $400, which might seem like a measly amount of money for a portrait, but you're already giving your time away for that amount of money. Wouldn't you rather be doing portraits than doing something you hate? And I think something like 80% of the people in the United States don't like their job. And about 50% absolutely hate what they do. Hate it. They dread waking up every morning, and they do it 5 days a week and go to something they hate. Like, why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
But again, like if you think about again, if you're making $150,000 a year, yeah, breaking into the art field at that level is going to be very, very hard. But if you're in a job that you hate and you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, you could be 2 or 3 years away from that kind of income in the arts if you just know how to tackle it.
Yeah,
it's not as difficult as it seems. It's having the right plan, understanding how to think about it. Yeah. And again, these are things we try to cover everything so that anybody in our program who's looking to go out into a career, it doesn't matter what end of the industry you want to go into, but that we're giving you the information that you need to the best of our ability to have the odds on your side. Yes. And that's it. People are afraid to make the jump. Unfortunately, when you hear artist, generally the word starving goes in front of it. But the truth is that if you have real skills, you know what you're doing, people appreciate art.
Yeah, definitely.
The art industry is, I think it's like $50 billion a year. 50 billion. I mean, it's some staggering number.
Yeah.
It's not hard to bite off a small piece of it and have a nice life. And again, let's say you make $60,000 a year and you hate your job. Well, how would you feel about making $50,000 a year and loving your job? Half of your waking day is spent at your work. Wouldn't it be nice if you loved what you did?
Yeah.
Rather than hated it?
Or even more than half of your day. So that's difficult.
Yeah. So many artists are willing to live a very lean financial life because they love what they do and they'd rather be happy. Yeah. My argument is that if you think it through, you don't have to sacrifice the income for the happiness, but you have to make sense of the business end of it. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of artists don't do that. A lot of artists, they spend their time in their studio because it's what they love to do, and they have no business acumen. Yeah. And they have agents. The agents are the ones who do the business for them, but in the process, they're giving away half of what they earn. Exactly. And they're at the mercy of the gallery or the agent. Or you don't have to go that road, especially with the internet. Yeah. But not even using the internet, you can do it locally. It's not that hard to do. You have to be creative, and you can't, once you get the ball rolling, you have to then think how to grow what you're doing. But again, if you have an idea of how this works, it's not that hard to see the path. Yeah. Then it's just a matter of getting in and doing the work.
Yeah, and having also a right mentor, as when we talked
about. It always
about,
helps.
So, yeah.
It always helps. And one of the things like with Evolve is once you're a student in the program, we'll always be here for you. 5 years from now, if you need something, you just reach out to us. We're here. Yeah. And again, like the students have access to me. Yeah. We get it all the time. People are stunned that they'll write and they'll have a question, and the next thing I'm setting up a chat with them. Yeah. Like, it's the strangest thing to them. To me, it's very natural. And again, if I have somebody one of my instructors who can easily handle the question, they'll take care of it. But for somebody that we're seeing that it's going to be a more intensive conversation, I take care of those. Yeah. I take care of as many as I can. Yeah. And the idea is that once the program's completely finished and all of the things are done that are eating up my time, that'll be my entire job. Yeah. Is being there for the students.
That's very
being
good.
There so that I can help them along the way. And again, I mean, for us, the student success is our concern. That's what we want. We want 100% success rate. We don't want anybody to go through our program and not get what they wanted. Now, again, we can't do the work for them. They have to do the work, but we're dedicated to their success. Yeah. And to the degree that in the first block, if you do the block and you are not happy, if we didn't meet your expectations and what we promised, we'll give you your money back. We don't, because we know what the program is. We know what the program is. And as long as you're willing to do the work, if you decide after you're done with that first block that we overpromised, we're okay with that. Yeah, yeah. And you get no fight from us, we'll write the check immediately. Yeah. You don't have to return anything. You just, because we know what the program is. Yeah. We know what we're offering.
Yeah, and
And
for
so,
people who don't know, we can maybe mention that you send out high quality paints
oh,
with the box,
yes,
and that you start with the tools, so people don't have to spend time like thinking what to use, and
yes.
it's in the price actually of the course.
Yes, yes. Yeah, actually, half of the price of the program is the materials. And we have the best materials you can buy. And I get asked this question all the time. So, do good materials make a better artist? And the answer is no. But bad materials can make a mess of a good artist, right? So, bad materials can stand in the way of doing the work. So you can do everything right, and if you're working with a low-grade material, not get the result. When you're learning, you have to use good material so that when you do a technique right, you get the result and you know that's how it's done. You don't, because if you do something and you do it right, but the material doesn't do what it's supposed to do, you think you're doing something wrong. So you start changing the process to get the material to give you the result. Now your process is all messed up because of the material. So we work with Old Holland. For anybody who's not familiar, Old Holland, they're a paint manufacturer in the Netherlands, and they've been around since the mid 1600s. They are the oldest paint manufacturer in the world, and the brand was put together by old masters, the Dutch masters, and so Vermeer, like the girl with the pearl earring, you go into a museum and you look at a Vermeer, you're looking at Old Holland paint. And some of the giants, like even today, Jeff Koons is one of the highest paid painters in the world. They use Old Holland. Odd Nerdrum, they call him the modern day Rembrandt. He's probably the highest paid figure painter in the world. His work is extraordinary. He's an Old Holland guy, right? And so you look around, discerning artists use Old Holland. And so, and if you go into the store, you'll get sticker shock. You look at the cost of the paint. But I can tell you that it's worth every penny if you know how to use it. Yeah. That's part of the education, how to use paint so you're not wasting it. But we make sure we source all of the material ourselves. And so when you sign up for the program, a box of material shows up at your door. And I think like one of the boxes is like 35 pounds. It's a brick. It is a heavy lift. But it's like 15, 18 tubes of paint and, probably like 25 brushes, canvas, paper, photographs, tear sheets. I mean, it's everything you could possibly need to do the program. You don't have to go to the store. Everything you need, it shows up at your door, and you do the program between that box and the internet. Everything is done that way. And you never have to step out of your home for anything related to the program.
Yeah, and you can see also the artworks of other students, right, in the classroom. Yes. So you can learn from their mistakes as well. So you can kind of bounce off these ideas.
Yeah, well, the program we've tried to create. So I may have actually passed over this. The Evolve program is actually designed off of a school that I opened in New Jersey. So I have a school that is it'll be 10 years old in September. And I put the program together in the school, and I teach it. And then when I met Mitch asked me if I would digitize the program. And so that's how Evolve came to be. And so in trying to create a similar environment, because obviously if you're working in your own home, you're alone. So what we have chat rooms where people will meet up, they'll do their homework together. So we'll have 10, 15 people in a chat room all doing different parts of the program, hanging out, talking. They get people from all around the world. We have one woman in Hong Kong. And so here in New Jersey, New York, like this area, we have a group that does what they call midnight tea. And we didn't put it together, they did. And there's about 5 people from this area that jump in, and they'd start at midnight. And Kat from Hong Kong, it's noon. So she jumps in. So we have people on the East Coast in the United States in a classroom with somebody in Hong Kong, and they're all painting. They're all working on their different parts of the program. And it's nice because you can be in the program maybe for 3 weeks. You're working on the 4th exercise or the 8th exercise, and somebody in the room did that one 3 weeks ago. They know you're having a problem. They know exactly what you're talking about because they just did it. And then you have somebody who's been in the program for a year, and they're already down in like block 6, and they're painting, and they have other insights. You can see what they're working on. it's just great. But we have so many things that we do this with. Like I said, I do a chat, and Piper, the head instructor, we do chats Tuesday and Thursday nights, and it's a lecture, and then it's Q&As for the students. And the Q&As they're on topic, and then we do off topic. So any question you have, we'll answer it while we're here. We also both have office hours, Monday and Tuesday. Anybody can it's just on a calendar. You click in, you click the time you want, and you've got one-on-one time with the instructors. Yeah. Then we have the chat rooms. We had a big party here in Hillsborough. People came to New Jersey. I don't know, about 20 people, I guess, came in. We had a nice party. In fact, the owner of Old Holland, he was in the United States on business, so he was there as well. He gave a nice lecture on the history of the company, which is incredible. Anybody who's not familiar with Old Holland should go out to their website and look. Like I said, I mean, they are the oldest paint manufacturer in the world. They make the greatest paint. Nobody even comes close. And we have this wonderful relationship with them. And it's just they have the same goals as us, to offer the finest of what they do and to give access to everybody. So they make it accessible to us, so that we can get it to our students. Without their generosity, we wouldn't be able to move that paint along. And so they are as committed to the success of these students as we are. Yeah. And it's just wonderful. We find every place we go when we're talking to the manufacturers of these materials that they're really just in line with the same kind of thinking. They're businesses, and they're there to make money, but they're interested in people's success. Yeah. They love art. And so it's nice to see that. But like I said, working with Old Holland has just been incredible. Yeah. It's just for me, and especially like for me, for 30 years I've been painting. I've always been a fan of their paint. To have them connected to my program the way that it is just it's a dream come true for me and for the students.
Exactly, because it's easier for them to progress with their skills, so that's definitely helpful. So for everyone who wants to check it out, there will be a link in the description, and we have a discount for the course, so it will be super awesome, guys, if you check it out. And also I would like to know from you as well, what would be your dream in 5 to 10 years, either with the program or with the artwork, because we always kind of end up discussions with this type of question.
Well, I've got a few things actually. So for the program, I don't view the program as just an education. I see its potential as a movement. I think that art education around the world is sorely lacking. And I think that what we're offering, if it were implemented at the high school level and treated with the same respect as a math class or a science class, every single student coming out of high school, one, would have a greater appreciation for the labor of making art, which creates people who now appreciate art just to view it, because you understand what goes into it. But imagine a society of people who actually has a skill, not a professional level skill, but who, you go to school, I don't care who you are, you can do basic math. I would love to see this program give access to everybody. I can't imagine how many people, they love art when they're young, but they just give up on it because they never find a place to learn. They get frustrated with it. Other things then catch their attention. Where had they been taught at the beginning and they saw the progress, that they would have stuck with it. How many potential Michelangelos have fallen by the wayside because they didn't have access? And what an incredible world. I mean, you talk about adding beauty to the world. Imagine, even if a tenth of the people in the world had access to something like this as a mandatory thing through high school, the amount of beauty that would be added to the world through the art they created would just be an incredible thing. And to be part of that, for me, it's a small part, but to be part of it would be incredible. So that for Evolve, again, I see it as a movement more than just an art education. And we're looking at just the very beginnings of it. We're already talking to school systems like in New York and in New Jersey as a starting point. But our plan, at least at the beginning, is to spread it all around the United States and then out into the rest of the world. I mean, we have students in 30 countries right now, but as we're trying to get into school systems, it's easiest to do it where I am. It's easy because I can hand hold it. But, and then for me, I want to get back to painting. I spent almost my entire adult life while I've been painting, I've been painting for other people. I started out as an illustrator, and once I got out of that, then I did portrait work. And so all of those pieces are commissioned. When they're done, they go out the door. I don't see them anymore. And, I'd like to do some paintings for myself. I have lots of ideas, but there's always business in the way. I don't have time. So I want to do some paintings for myself. As things move down the road, I'm more a fan of other people's art than I am of my own. And so I can see eventually building a collection. Yeah. I have other people's art on the wall behind me here. This is Boris. That's an original. This is Rick Young. Very good. Anybody who doesn't know who he is, you look him up on Facebook. Rick Young. His drawings are absolutely gorgeous. And then this is one of my students down here. But and that one's mine. But I love art, and so I want to be surrounded by it. And I like my art, but I love the art of other people. I just, there's so much genius out there. And just to kind of be surrounded by it all the time would be an absolute dream. Yeah. And I plan on doing a lot of traveling. And the traveling will be connected to Evolve. We want to do seminars all around the world. And so awesome. My idea is that I'll spend like a month in one country. We'll do a seminar there, and then I'll enjoy the culture for a month, and then move someplace else for a month, and do that all the time. Yeah. Because I won't have any reason to be kind of landlocked here in the U.S. It'd be nice to be able to get out and really take in the world like that.
Yeah, and people can join your workshops, and it would be like super exciting. So,
we would very likely, we do workshops. We would probably do one workshop for our students. Mm-hmm. And then one workshop for anybody who's not a student that's interested in seeing what we do. Yeah. And so, but these are things are all they're in the works. We're piecing them all together. We actually have a group of students in Europe, and we were trying to put together a trip there in August to meet up with them. We have I think we have 5 people in Europe that were absolutely in, and then we have about 10 people in the U.S. who said they would travel there for it. But my schedule, I've got too much going on, and I thought I was going to be able to manage it, but I'm not. So we are canceling it. We're going to put it on the schedule for next year. Yeah. And but we want to go and spend time with our students.
It will Enough of them eventually.
Travel here. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we have a lot going on. We have some big things coming up. We're getting ready to launch a new website, and there's so many advancements in the program right now, really, that are going to hit in September. So for all of your listeners. September 2019, if you go and you look at our stuff, come back out again in the second week of September, you're going to have a very, very different impression of what we're doing here. And and if you can, go out to the website, evolveartist.com, and just get on our mailing list. And we'll keep you up to date on things we're doing. It'll give you access to a few things. You'll get some little tidbits of education along the way. And, maybe you'll find the program is of interest to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I will also attach at the end some of the students of Evolve interview parts. So people listening now can also check out what other students think and what was their experience. And also always easy to go through the link in the description. So it's if you forget how to spell something, or just click on the link there, and hope you guys will find this super interesting, because I think this is amazing. And so hope you check it out, and I hope also this interview was inspirational for you guys. So let us know what you think also in the comments. And thank you so much for being here, listening. And thank you, Kevin, for being here so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so see you guys in the next video or interview podcast. Bye.
Well, I want to create fabulous portraits. I would like to give them as gifts to my family members. But I see myself integrating, I love anime, so integrating anime into some realism, some crazy type stuff. I don't know. But right now, just having fun. So the sky's the limit. I can go, I feel now confident enough to go in any direction that I want. So it's beyond beyond my expectations. I mean, everything that I've learned in the last 3 months has been fabulous. I feel like I can do anything. Matter of fact, I've been canceling accounts to other things that I'm doing because this is all I want to do. So I'm very happy with the program. I don't see myself going anywhere else. It's the fulfillment of something that I always wanted to do since I was sitting in a big living room as a little kid, coloring in the coloring book and staying in the lines, you know, and making the colors bold because I like the way that looked. It just encapsulates everything, you know, going to the museum, seeing beautiful paintings, sketching while sitting on the couch. You know, it fulfills everything that I may want to do, whatever I decide to do. It's just great. So, oh my God, it's opened up a world of opportunity, and I'm happy to be here.
My dream with my art is to get everything that's in my head out on a canvas. I feel like my whole life I've had ideas for paintings and pictures, and I've just never been able to put them down in a way that meant anything to anybody else but me. So I'm hoping to develop my skill enough to get pictures in frames, you know, professionally done. It's the community of people, the value of what you get along with the class working at home is tremendous. Everything is professional, and the support I get in the school and from the community on Facebook. My escape plan from corporate America, something that I could share with my family, my kids, my friends. That's it, just a personal goal.
Because I had gotten into art way back in high school, and then I kind of dropped it when I went to college and started pursuing my career. It was always a part of me that I kind of was missing. And I wasn't sure what it was that I was missing, but I knew it was something. So for me, getting back into art is kind of like, it's going back to that original dream I had of like being an artist and having recognition as an artist, and you know, having producing artwork that my family is proud of, that I'm proud of. I can say like, oh, did you do that? It's like, yeah, actually, I did do that. In fact, I've done a bunch of these, and like being able to share that pride of having created something like that. Evolve for me was about putting something in my reach. Realism was something that was always just like so far away, and the techniques behind it and oil painting and everything else was just so hard for me to even understand like what I needed to achieve. Evolve is more about like, this is a process that you follow, and anyone can do this. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be trained by masters, even though you really are being trained by a master, but you're being trained at a level that's approachable, that's attainable. To me, Evolve it's equal parts the community. We have people that are, you know, just cheerleaders for everyone. It doesn't matter what stage you're on. It doesn't matter what you're getting stuck on. You have people that are like, no, you can keep going, and this is great. You're doing things really well. So you can kind of take that success, you can share it with other people. And again, because you're seeing results, you're putting things down, you're actually doing paintings. So it's not just a game of, you know, oh, well, I'm sure someday I'll be able to create something amazing. You're going through and finishing a painting. You're maybe, you know, a month or a couple months into the program, and you're like, I did this, I made this already. I can't wait to see what I'm going to build next, what I'm going to make next, what I'm going to paint next. And being able to share that joy and success with a whole community of people that support you.
I feel like my dream's a little bit different, that I grew up in this little tiny village where I felt like I had limited opportunity, and I want to be able to almost have a time machine and take back an art curriculum to that 7-year-old version of myself that wanted to be an artist and say, this is the thing, put your faith in this will get you to where you want to go. And so my dream is to be able to be involved in bringing a program and helping create a program that can do that for people that are in that same situation where you don't know who to turn to, that this is the answer that you've been looking for. The dream is to be able to go and take a viable curriculum to kids who want to achieve mastery with their art. And so the Evolve program is helping me, is giving me the tool that I need to go back to these high schools and say, like, if you have students who want to learn, who want to be creative, this is the answer. And it doesn't just stop there, because there's a lot of people who want to learn realistic art skills. And what this program is so good at is taking you from the ground level, absolutely nothing, and then taking you all the way to mastery. I think Evolve is the answer that if you've been wanting to learn how to create realistic art, it's the answer that will give you that foundational level that will teach you not just how to make art, but also how to think and how to have the discipline and important things like slowing down so that you can actually create great work and not rushing through things. So yeah, for me, it's really the answer, and I'm so excited to be part of that and to help bring that message to whoever wants to learn art.